Hey everybody, it's Starjump Grim doing an audio check. Let me know if you can hear me in chat. Give me that 5x5 if I'm coming in okay. Appreciate it. All righty, give me 1 second and we'll be live. All right. Hello everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Let's pop that Shipyard logo on. Let's go to our reverse setup here. Pop it on over there just so we have it. Okay. Up and we, oops, looks like we still have our ender on the phone thing. Let me pop that off. All right. How is everybody doing? Hope you're having a good, what day is it? Tuesday? Hope you're having a good Tuesday. All right. Nice to see you all in chat. Got Starjump Ender, Shimpasta. I saw Shimpasta in there pretty early in that chat. Again, nice to see you all today. Got a few things to discuss. As you see, today's episode will be on the 4.1 ship changes. We might jump into the 4.1 PTU. I think the PU is currently under maintenance, which is good. I had a really interesting play cycle though yesterday with the PU. But regardless, PTU should be up if I'm not mistaken. And we'll jump in there as we discuss some of the ship information. As you all know, few top of show kind of announcements. We have St. Jude coming up. That'll be in April and May. We are again, same update as I gave you the last time I was on. We've made a significant amount of progress scheduling stuff out. Getting the raffle prizes all figured out, all that kind of good stuff. You're going to have, I just realized I have a mustache hair. I'm growing my beard out, everyone. We have a significant number of raffle stuff to figure out. Little, I guess you call them milestones, little donation goals, etc., donation challenges, however you want to label them, to get worked out and scheduled up. But essentially, the long and short of it is each week you're going to get probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 Starjump streams at a minimum, probably around 4. Might be more some weeks. There could be a week where there's less. It just sort of depends on stars aligning and stuff. But here's the exciting news, and me and Ender especially will talk more about this soon. But every week there's going to be raffle prizes, all kinds of cool stuff, like literally every week. So it's going to be really cool. That's coming up soon. For those of you fans of Fleet Builders, I am really wanting to get it back this for the St. Jude event. Don't know if it'll happen in April or May or possibly even both, but I really want to do a Fleet Builders episode. Still get requests for that on our YouTube channel. People chiming in on the old Fleet Builders videos, asking for more. So again, the goal is to do that. In addition to that, 4.1 obviously is on the PTU. We're going to talk a lot about that. There's I have a weekly chat coming up later this week, Starjump Station as well, where we're going to talk about some of the 4.1 stuff. Starjump Station this Friday night, by the way, will be on Capital Ships Revisited. We may have a guest as well on that episode, but we're going to take a look at the capital ships and sort of talk about them in light of the new Star Citizen 1.0 direction, and some of the changes being made to the scope of Star Citizen, especially for a 1.0 product. One of the biggest things will be the amount of systems coming out for 1.0, which we know is 5. Stanton, Pyro, Nyx, Castra, and Terra, and how that scale possibly affects those things. So definitely going to revisit the capital ship discussion. Those of you may remember I want to say it was our very first Starjump Station, but I could be wrong. I think it was our very first one was on capital ship gameplay. but again, a lot of stuff has changed since then. So, hey, XQ, hope you're well. Uh, so we'll talk more about that as new light has new information has come to light. So we'll have that discussion on Friday. Again, today, I just wanted to talk about some 4.1 ship changes. I originally was tracking a few of these. If you're in our Discord, you'll notice there was a few discussions posted related to it. But as I've been looking into it more and more, looking at some of the information, some of the data that's coming out, did a little digging myself. There's actually quite a few ship changes, and I think that goes into the whole idea behind what I always say, in that ships are constantly changing and evolving. Don't pledge for ships or buy ships if the reason you're buying them comes down to a specific number or a stat, because all those things can and will change. That can be related to performance, maneuvering, combat effectiveness, hit points, weapon hard point numbers, any and all those things, right? So, Artorius, hope you're well. Salute. Nice to see you again, buddy. So again, we have some stuff to go over. We're probably going to launch the PTU and take a look at one of those ships in particular, maybe two that I have access to, and they're two of the main ones. I think they're kind of interesting to talk about, and then we may go over some other things. So I think that's mostly everything. One other bit of news I heard and was that because of the government tariffs and stuff, I heard that Tobii eye trackers we're about to get a lot more expensive now. I'm not sure if the rest of you heard about this, or if you play with Tobii or were looking to purchase one. They're jumping up pretty significantly. I think it's like $75 or something like that. The reason I wanted to talk about this real quick is because I just had to sort of fix something semi-related to that. And for those of you that don't know, I have used head tracking for probably going on 15 years now, going all the way back to Arma 2, and then of course Arma 3, and Star Citizen as well. And probably next stream execute, probably next Shipyard. I've had to I haven't been able to put any attention on it because of real life stuff, but I do want to get back to it. So probably next stream, let's plan on an Argo continuation of the Argo project. I think we got to get back to that. There's VMXEO. Hope you're well, dude. But for those of you that were interested in a Tobii but are now going to be turned off by its incredibly high price point, I really can't recommend, and I'm not sponsored by this company at all or anything. I'm simply promoting them because their product is amazing, and that is this Track IR by Natural Point. The current one is Track IR 5. It's this little camera device here. It's pretty thin, as you can see. It's pretty thin. It goes on the top of your monitor, and there is a little piece that either attaches to a hat or it can attach to your headphones. It kind of looks like a little antler. You can see mine here. This is a third-party one. There's people that make third-party ones. This is it. It's really easy. It charges, so you can keep it charged. Once you do charge it, though, it's wireless. So here's my opinion on the Track IR versus Tobii thing. Both are good. Excuse says, I tried getting one for review, but they never got back to me. Is that Track IR or Tobii? So I've tried both. I own both. I do have a Tobii eye tracker. I personally, Starjump Antler, yes. I personally prefer Track IR. And the reason is, it's a couple reasons. One is the overall feel of it. Track IR has a very precise feel, especially when you're doing like micro movements. It's very precise, meaning if you want it to go a little to the left or a little to the right, it'll do that. I do find that Tobii, And this probably has to do a little bit with just the organic nature of eye movement. It does feel a little swimmy. Even the super precise movement is sometimes always a little drifty. I do think they have corrections in there for that, but again, it does feel a little, uh, well, um, Excuse says it does feel soft and squishy. So it does actually. The movement of it feels a little soft and swimmy to me. So some people like that though. Some people do like it. Some people don't want to have the thing on the headset and stuff. They just want the little Toby bar underneath the monitor. Again, if that's something you're after, if that's what would work better for you, Toby is a great product. It is pretty expensive now. I think you can get the Track IR set up. I want to say, how much is Track IR? Let me pull it up here real quick. Just a minute. Track IR is currently about $150 on Amazon. $150. Again, I do recommend it. You can see here on their videos actually is someone playing Star Citizen. It's an old video, but they are playing Star Citizen. It's a great product though. I've played it for a long time for Arma 3. It does work with DCS and Microsoft Flight Simulator and all that kind of good stuff. The one nice thing about Track IR though is that it it says by OptiTrack now. I wonder if they got bought. I guess they did. That's interesting. That may be why we haven't gotten a Track IR 6 yet. But again, Track IR 5 works good. Oh wow, it's $550 in Australia. Ooh, wow. So one thing I do like about Track IR though is that you can get third-party head tracking pieces. Luke Clip and Dellen Clip, who both have stores on Facebook, they make their own. They 3D print and make their own. They're really, really nice, all wireless. Again, I prefer that. I prefer the flexibility of that. If my camera dies, I can just replace the camera. If my headpiece dies, I can just replace the headpiece. It's not a whole ecosystem. You can use any third-party headpiece with the Track IR head camera. So again, just something I recommend. Again, you can get the Pro bundle, which has the headphone clip, tracking piece, the antler, as well as the camera. $169 in the US here at least. And then you can buy those things separately, the camera $150 and the Track Clip Pro for $34.95. So you actually see you get a pretty good deal. You get about $15 off if you buy the bundle. So I do recommend. I highly recommend. But again, I just saw that news about Toby, so I thought it'd be good to talk about because a lot of people don't know about Track IR or they think it's specifically for. I've heard a lot of people think that it's specifically for DCS or specifically for Microsoft Flight Simulator. But the fact is, you can use it in a lot of games, racing games, DCS, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Arma works in the Arma series really great. I'm not sure if other shooters support it, but there you go. All right, but let's get to ships. Okay, we got some ship stuff to talk about. So we are going to circle back to two of these ships, and I'm going to save those for last. Specifically, the Corsair and the Caterpillar. Both of them received updates. I don't think it's a big secret what the updates are. The Corsair got its pilot-controlled guns back, but they did change the size of those guns a bit, and the Caterpillar now has its doors that can open all the way up. Now, the problem with that is that they only open all the way up or not open at all. They don't do the halfway mark anymore, which actually is problematic for a few reasons. We'll get to that. But let's go into some other stuff. The first one is, and actually let me go ahead and bring up so we can have some, so we can have some talking points here. The first one is the Valkyrie. Okay, so the Anvil Valkyrie had some updates to it. It might have got some performance changes. I'm not 100% sure. I do need to go back and check that. But one thing it did get, and this is pretty important to Valkyrie owners, is it did get an increase in its 30 SCU of cargo space that it can carry. So the current cargo grid on the Valkyrie is 30 SCU. That was mostly artificial. And the reason it could only support 30 SCU is because you could not stack the cargo boxes. They could only be one high, I believe. So limit it to 30. Now, though, you can stack them up 2 levels. So and they'll lock into place. And now that you can stack them to levels, it actually increases the SCU capacity from 30 all the way to 90. So the Valkyrie is currently in 4.1 sitting at 90 SCU, which is a pretty big jump. And if you are a Valkyrie fan, then this should be something that gets you pretty happy. I was hoping it was additional cargo grid space for where the vehicle's supposed to sit. Chat, correct me if I'm wrong. Where the vehicle sits in the rear garage area, that's not a cargo grid. Am I correct on that? And thank you, Zarek. Over on SP Viewer says the Valkyrie got a 4% reduction in mass and a right. Did it get a 4% reduction in mass overall? Interesting. So, and we're going to talk about component masses. So, component mass went up 204%. That is across the board, by the way. Across the board component mass increased across the board. This affected heavy fighters especially. Okay, I see Execute and Zarek saying it is the same. It's the same area. Okay, cool. So essentially all that happened then is that they increased the stack capability, the stack lock capability of the cargo grid, which increased it from 30 SCU to 90 SCU. So that's a great change, obviously. And then it shares that space with the vehicle. I do believe as well it got some interior lockers, so some interior space added to it for the crew. So I believe it got some lockers. I do not own a Valkyrie, so unfortunately I can't check that. I don't think this is necessarily the case, but one reason the Valkyrie may have gotten some love is that if I had to guess, they're currently in the Valkyrie file, the actual ship file. And that is partially because a big part of that reason is because the Paladin's in production, right? We already know this. This is something CIG has talked to us about. The Paladin is currently in production. So those of you Paladin lovers, that ship is in active run right now. So with that, they've probably been opening the Valkyrie file to do some changes here and there and did some quality of life stuff. So Zarek says six lockers each at 0.4 SCU as far as he knows. Okay, yeah, great. So I thought I had heard that. Again, I don't own a Valkyrie. I personally love the Valkyrie in terms of its looks. I would have been fine with the Valkyrie just being turned into a gunship. Of course, the Paladin borrows heavily, but is a significantly different body shape overall. Well, not significantly different, but it's got enough differences that it's a different ship, right? So, and I do love the Paladin, but I would have been happy with the Valkyrie just being updated, honestly. But I'm all for new holes. All for new holes. So yeah, so the other thing, so let's talk about that real quick. So there have been a lot of adjustments to a lot of ships, especially heavy fighters, in terms of their performance, like their maneuverability, especially. And that's because the component mass adjustment, you see Zarek posted that in chat. Component mass there with the Valkyrie increased 204%. Again, that is a systemic change to any ship that has certain size of components. And because of that, some ships had their component mass increased, which decreased that ship's maneuverability. Some ships were compensated for with that, but some ships were not, right? So it's a little bit all over the place. We'll go over a few of those. For example, one of those was the Cutlass series. I think the entire Cutlass series actually did receive maneuverability buffs across the board. So I think the Cutlass obviously is using smaller components than the Valkyrie, if I'm not mistaken. But overall, the Cutlass series received performance bonuses or buffs, if you want to call them that, across the board. The Caterpillar, we're going to go over that with the doors. The Guardian series also received some performance buffs, and I think that was specifically to get it more in line with its role as a high performance heavy fighter. And it's interesting that the Guardian received those buffs because a lot of other heavy fighters such as the Scorpius, the Vanguard series, the Hurricane, F-8C Lightning, they all received some maneuvering. I don't want to call them nerfs, maneuvering adjustments downward, right? So, but it's all countered, right? So the Vanguard series received some HP bonuses to the hull, so it got some health points added to the hull, and I think the nose of the ship, which I believe are different sections technically from the hit points standpoint. But speeds were reduced and yaw rate was reduced. There was probably other things that were possibly reduced as well. I'm not sure about the thrust capacity on the Vanguard. These type of adjustments too were across the Vanguard series. Different ones like the Hoplite received a few things different than say the Harbinger, but in general, the entire Vanguard series saw some movement. The F-8C Lightning was actually nerfed a little bit more in certain areas. It did get a little bit tankier. I think they added some hit points to it. This is one I'm generally pay attention to just because I fly the F-8C a lot. So it got a little tankier, but the speed and the yaw rate, was it yaw or roll? Yaw. So speed and yaw though was reduced by 11%, so pretty significant. And that reduction in speed and yaw, especially yaw and roll, things like that, seem to be across the board sort of related to the component mass switch. Again, I'm speculating there, but yeah, Glass Sword. I mean, I definitely think the F-8C, and I have been flying it recently, the F-8C does have a bit of a sluggish feel to it. But in the same regard, I think they are trying to give all the heavy fighters a little bit of a proper standing against each other, right? So they're trying to give some of them bonuses over others and so for example, a good example of that would be the Scorpius, which also received a host of buff and nerfs, but the Scorpius also got, I think this is a second or third acceleration buff that it's gotten. So the Scorpius, for example, is one of the fastest out of the gate heavy fighters there is. Not sure how it stacks up against the Guardian, actually. I have to look. But all this goes into, and not that we need to get all number crunching here and really beyond this, but this all kind of goes to this idea that that ships are in flux, right? I say this all the time. It's not a good idea to buy any ship based off a specific number, as we're going to talk about, and go look in the PTU with the Corsair. We have the pilot got control of all the guns now, but the cockpit. The 4 cockpit guns around the nose, I believe, are all size 4 now, and the wing guns are size 5. So again, some switching up a little bit, but we're going to see a lot of that, right? I'm going to go next to this ship, the Starlancer. The Starlancer received kind of an interesting 4.1 edition, and that is of a missile, a remote missile camera for the turret. And this is definitely related, in my opinion, definitely related to the TAC. The TAC is probably in active production as we speak. I'm starting to lean more and more that we could get the TAC at Invictus. I originally wasn't thinking that would be the case, but it feels like it's headed that way. On it, Kaji, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Salute to you. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Everyone, thanks for the follows and the supports. And if you're over on YouTube, thanks for hitting that subscribe button, the thumbs up button, all that kind of good stuff. It does help. Our YouTube channel has definitely been growing, and that's exciting. But But yeah, so the Star Lancer received that change. Again, it is a a remote turret missile camera was added, but it could have just been added as a either an active thing to the max, or it could just be added as part of the the entity list for the ship, but maybe it's destined for the TAC. Not 100% sure about that, but again, interesting change, again reinforcing that something we already knew, which was the TAC was in active development. Hefe Momo says, "What do you think about the Apollo this year?" We're going to talk about that, Hefe. We're going to talk about that. So hang on, and we're going to get to that one for sure. So yeah, I see Solomon saying hopefully the TAC and Perseus at Invictus. I definitely think we're getting the Perseus at Invictus. I think that's a no-brainer. Before I was one of those people saying, "Well, I don't know." I really think we're getting the Perseus at Invictus is flight ready. It doesn't mean it won't get some adjustments post flight ready status, but CIG has shown that they're not necessarily against doing that with the Polaris and how they did the captain's quarters after the ship went flight ready. I'm not totally sure how I feel about that, but I guess I don't really mind too much knowing that ships launch all the time or go flight ready all the time without being totally workable. So Ezra says, but I'm not so. But you're not so sure about the TAC during ILW. I'm not sure. I'm a little split on that one. Definitely Perseus. I mean, here's the thing. As soon as we get that Invictus calendar schedule, we're gonna know. We're gonna know pretty quick, I think. I think the TAC is very reasonable. John just said it right there. Took the words right out of my mouth. Nice job, John. I think it's very reasonable to assume the TAC is coming at Invictus. Again, most of it was already there. The stuff that's different in the TAC versus the Max are general interior changes, such as the Fury hangar and the drop seats and all that stuff. And the medical, it has medical, right? I believe so. Excuse says our video that's coming is next on the Perseus at IAE. Yeah, I agree. I'll definitely watch that one. I think Perseus at IAE though is almost a guaranteed. I think the big question mark is not so much the TAC, but it's the Ironclad. Is the Ironclad coming at Invictus? My initial hope was that the Ironclad and the Ironclad Assault were coming out at Invictus, specifically, obviously, on Drake Defense Day to sort of counter the other ship manufacturers. The only thing that makes me doubt that is that is a lot of big ships releasing at the same time. That'd be 200-meter plus ships and then 190-meter ship, essentially. Right, or 83 meters, however long. So we'll see. Yeah, maybe the assault's later. I could see them releasing it without it, but we'll see. Maybe they don't release it at all. The only thing I would say is if they were going to release the Ironclad during Drake Defense Con, I would think they would want the assault variant, because the standard Ironclad I don't think rings like Defense Con, but I could be wrong. I mean, I don't think CIG really puts that much thought into it other than just like, hey, when do events line up with a ship being done? So I think the Ironclad is still the big question mark there. We'll see. Other ship news. Terrapin Medic, the Terrapin Medical. Awesome little ship. I had one for a very short period of time. The Terrapin Medical did get a fuel capacity increase, which is really awesome, especially as people, I think, are using it a lot in Pyro. I think it went from 1.8 million to 4 million. What is it? Is that the fuel capacity? Well, fuel capacity 1.8 million to 4 million. So I'm pretty sure those numbers. Let me check that just to make sure I'm not speaking out of turn here. Yeah, 1.8 to 4 million on the Terrapin Medical fuel supply. So that's pretty cool. Last but not least, again, we are going to talk about the Caterpillar and the Corsair. We're going to go in game for those, but I want to talk about this ship. I want to talk about this one for a minute. Yeah, I see people saying staggered for sure in regards to the Ironclad. I don't know. It's possible. It's possible. There's nothing preventing them from really releasing both if they really wanted to. I mean, there's tons of ships that don't have all their gameplay, and I know CIG wants to avoid that, so it's still very possible that they won't release the assault. And we've seen that in the case of the Zeus and the spirits and all that. There's variants that they don't release because the gameplay's not ready. They could release the E1 spirit. They just wouldn't have its passenger gameplay. Personally, I wish they would, just because it allows us to test those ships a little bit before one goes in production much later. But we'll see. Again, I do think they take those ships a good distance. So even though let's say the Ironclad's the only one that comes out, I think the Assault will have made its way like 90% through production, and it'll just be waiting on the prerequisites that they're still waiting on, whether that's fabrication or repair or whatever. So, let's see. Renard Muldrake says, "I love you and hope you are doing well, Graham." Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Love all of y'all. Appreciate you hanging out with me today. So let's talk about this ship. We are talking about a little bit about the Aegis Idris frigate. The Idris received some updates. This is not a big surprise because we do know the Idris is being actively worked on to some degree, because it'd be in Squadron 42, and Squadron 42 is pushing along, right, for its 2026 release. But John Cruz stated on stage, and I think he'll keep to this, John Cruz stated on stage, the Idris will go to backers when Squadron 42 releases. So when Squadron 42 comes out, those of you that own an Idris are going to get your Idris, whether it's M, K, and if you have the P kit, then, or sorry, the M and P, and if you have the K kit will come online as well. But there were some changes. Now, we've already talked in the past about the numerous exterior changes on the Idris, so we're not going to go over those again, although just to say that pretty much the entirety of the exterior of the ship has changed. And I've looked at it in detail. I've opened up the 3D models of the old ship versus what we see in the Squadron trailer. And I don't see a lot of content creators talking about this yet, but they definitely will when CIG starts talking a lot about it. We're going to get a Star Citizen live on this for sure. But the Idris and the Javelin have changed completely on their exteriors. Almost every panel line, almost every part, piece, and greeble has changed in some way. Not just little changes, pretty massive changes. Now remember, those exterior changes don't mean the interiors change. I don't think they've changed any interior. They're going to want to keep that how it is for Squadron. But exterior, plenty is fine to change, and it does look like they've changed a lot. All right. Okay. We've pointed out things like the engine before, or all the engines. We've pointed out panel lines, all that kind of good stuff. Okay. But let's talk about some other changes that came to the Idris. The Idris did get a slight cargo grid increase. That's something we were able to see. It went from 1,168 SCU to 1,216. That is a very slight increase, but it's kind of a curious increase. I think that is pretty much related to the missile room being added. What is the missile room, you may be asking? Well, for the longest time, for years and years and years, the Idris has had a missile room that has been locked off. No one's ever been able to see inside of it because it was under development. We all knew it was under development because I'm sure it comes into play during Squadron. It's actually, there's been I forget which developer said it, maybe Ben Curtis? I forget. One of the developers said that the missile room is a very important room, which is why so much attention is being given to it. Well, we now know what the missile room looks like. I will pop that over here so you can all see it. Hopefully you want to see it, but I spoil stuff all the time, so hopefully you're prepared for that. Here is the missile room for the Idris. Finally been added after all these years. You can see it here. The magazine feeders is what those look like, as well as the 4 missile tubes is what I'm guessing we're seeing there. I'm not sure how it functions yet. We none of that is animated or at least in this video is functional in terms of interacting with it. But in general, it looks like it's all there now. So again, very cool. Again, shows you that the Idris is receiving active work right now, active work. And it looks nice. I dig it. I dig it. So one other change with the Idris actually, and that is, and it's, let me go back here to its nose gun right up here. So the Idris did get its nose turret added as an entity. It was missing for a long time actually. So if you've played in the PU and you come up against an Idris and it has a nose gun, it does have a nose gun. It's not that they added it after fact. But if you pulled the model itself, it did not have a nose gun. This is actually something you can see in Starjump Fleet Viewer. At least I think, unless we updated it. Let me check. Let me check. Yeah, you'll see right here. The gun's missing. And it's like that on all the Idris variants. You'll see that the nose gun is missing, and that is because it's just not there as a file connected to the Idris yet. But that has been added. So if our good buddy VMXEO who's in chat, if he was to pull the Idris and Starfab now, it would probably come with a turret up there. Obviously, the Idris has got a lot of turrets here. You can see them mounted all over the place. But again, remember, this is the old Idris design. This is not what we're going to be getting moving forward. I've been a pretty vocal messenger that we are getting a fully reworked Idris for the PU. I do think it's going to be this one here with the different kind of chevron engines. Pretty much all the panel lines are different. I can pull up additional screenshots of that. Well, that's the Javelin. Where's that other image? Is it this one? Yeah. You can see here the back now slopes away. You can see those engines again. The entire top of the bridge section here is reworked. Those panel lines are all different. All the panel lines are different here. Again, almost the entire exterior of the ship has been changed for the better, in my opinion, too. This was not Bunker Fist. I agree. I think it looks a lot cooler in the new one. This was not a big surprise, though. We knew the Idris was going to get this rework as well as the Javelin because CIG had said as much when they were talking about the Polaris and how much detail the Polaris had received on its exterior. CIG had made the comment, I forget where it is. If anyone can find it, I'd love, not right now, but if you can find it in the future, feel free to DM it to me. But CIG definitely said that they were going to be taking a look at other capital ships and look at increasing their levels of fidelity. So it was not a surprise that the Idris and Javelin were getting that look. It was just surprising how much of a change they received. John Chase says, wait, why does the P model have a railgun? I assume you're talking about on Fleet Viewer. And the reason the P on here has a railgun is because our version of the P is just a recolor of the M. You can see that the M is the UES Stanton, which is the only one we currently have access to in Starfab or in the game. And this one is also called the Stanton, even though it wouldn't normally be like that. We will need to update these, obviously, once CAG has the final ships in game. And, hopefully next year we'll be able to update the Idris, the Javelin, Vandal ships will come in, all that kind of good stuff. So this will need to be updated. Again, this has the old engines, the stacked engines, these little side vent engines, which looks like they've been completely removed in the new Idris. These engines are way different now. They're tilted under like sort of an angle. So yeah, and you see how the back here, if I go to the back, you'd see how this back sloops down. See how this little piece that comes out here swoops downward? Well, again, in the new one, it swoops out, right? So the new one swoops in, so it goes down and swoops in. This one swoops out. So you can see the pretty major change there. Pretty major change. So yeah, that's why, John, but we will update that at some point. Mark G says, "Lol, Ironclad could land on the front of the Idris. That'd be pretty tight. Pretty tight, I think. Right? You got me curious now. You got me curious. Maybe. I mean, it couldn't. I mean, it'd be rough because, yeah, technically, I guess technically you're right. It could land there. Gives you a good idea of scale, by the way. Gives you a real good idea of scale. Ships like the Pioneer, now it's 247-meter length. Again, gives you an idea of that, how big some of those ships are, right? But it's pretty cool to see. Always cool to see that those levels of scale, right? Cam Wright on YouTube says, "Do you have any plans to do a 3D viewer?" No, no plans, Cam. Lunfacy over at Starship 42 does a great job. If you've never used that, I highly recommend going to Starship 42 and using that. Lunfacy is a really nice guy, and we've kind of helped each other out here and there. I know a lot of people seem to think we are competitors in some way, but I don't look at it that way at all. But he's got the 3D viewer, allows you to look at the ships in 3D and stuff. Obviously, at a lower fidelity, because if you were to try to do it at the level of fidelity that Fleet Viewer has, it would be completely unworkable. So. Let's see. Can't wait for the StarFab guys to tackle the CFG stuff. They're real wizards. They are real wizards. I don't know what all they're tackling, but they are definitely wizards. Okay, let's go into. We're going to attempt to go into the game here. Bear with me. Let me launch it. Any questions? Yeah, a lot of people think that Starship 42 and Starjump Fleet Viewer are somehow competitors. I've seen people, post Starjump Fleet Viewer pictures and trash Starship 42. I've seen people post Starship 42 stuff and trash Fleet Viewer. It's just so funny because we don't look at it that way. We're very friendly to each other. I find it interesting because I feel like they do very different things. The entire point behind, and I'm going to switch over to the game here in just a minute, everyone. The entire point behind Starjump Fleet Viewer was to view your ships and essentially do fleet picks at a very high fidelity, while the goal with Starship 42 was to be able to look at those models and build, or not build, but inspect the models of the ships and really explore the scale in 3D, be able to rotate that camera, have that dynamic kind of experience with it, and it does that very well. So, all right, let me switch over here. And let's see if we can check out, this is a PTU, see if we can check out the Caterpillar and the Corsair. We're going to check those out. Yeah, Stan, different tools that are useful for different jobs. Yeah, essentially. I do hope soon that we get a little bit of a curtain pulled back on the changes made to the Idris and Javelin, going back to that, for two reasons. One, I think the changes are really nice, and I think people are going to be very excited about them. There's probably going to be a couple holdovers that really like the old look, but those of you longtime backers will know that this is not the first time that the Idris has been completely changed. Now, previously, the Idris had changes that literally not only change its exterior, but change its complete interior. But the Idris has received changes over the years to its exterior, so this is nothing new. It's just this is one of the most extensive reworks of an exterior, and with so many people owning with so many people owning the Idris and Javelin, I think it's important to kind of get those changes out there, so people can kind of get used to what they pledged for and all that kind of good stuff. Whoop. Yep, there it is. No interior, and there's the interior. Those of you who've been playing will know this is an issue that's been popping up. Okay, we got someone here who's all over the place. By the way, people, when you're playing Star Citizen, move with the correct type of movement. These people that do this movement is so irritating where they're like, ugh, I'm all over the place because I can't stand in one place. Dear God. All right, let's head to the hangars. When we played Arma 3, it was funny because when we were doing mission briefings and stuff, if people did not stand still while we were doing mission briefings, we would actually get irritated and call them out. Hold up the briefing because people wouldn't stand still. But this is generally how people in Star Citizen move. They can't stay still. It's like they've got something going on. They're just constantly moving like this. They can't stay still. It's like, hi, I'm waiting. I'm just waiting for the shuttle. Yep, this is a Star Citizen player in 2025, everyone. Pretty much that. Anyway, Art says, don't call me out like that. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, Art. Mark G says, Liberator needs to actually get worked on. Yeah, I don't think the Liberator's been touched in quite a while. I do think they will get back to Anvil, especially large Anvil ships at some point. We know they're working on the Paladin. We know they want to work on the Liberator. But beyond the Carrack, they don't really have any large Anvil ships to pull from. I do think that possibly after this run of MISC ships, so and Drake ships, because we know that they're working on large MISC and Drake ships right now. We just don't know how long that run's going to be. So right now, a lot of us are assuming that they're going to work on the Ironclads, for example, and then move on to the Kraken. However, it's very possible they just work on the Ironclad, maybe another Drake ship or two that have yet to be revealed, and then move on and have no plans to go to the Kraken at this moment. But I do think they are going to work on the Kraken after the Ironclad. But with MISC, we know they're working on the Star Lancers. We may get some updates, I think, to some other MISC ships. It'll be determined on if they make another hull ship like the Hull D, or if they make the Odyssey or whatever. We need to see how much of the MISC and Drake line they intend to go down. We haven't really gotten a good idea of that yet. We really only know the two ships currently in production, which is the Star Lancer TAC and the Ironclad. But again, we've been told they want to work on bigger ships for those two manufacturers. So it could be a little bit of time before we get to the Liberator. Let's hope there it is. Be very careful with the elevators, everyone, right now. And then there's several ships, too, that get reconcepted during that time. So, for example, I do think the Endeavor's probably getting some level of reconcepting done while they're working on MISC ships. No real production work, but I could see there being some reconcepting. And then with Anvil, definitely the Crucible. The Crucible needs a pretty massive rework. I think the Crucibles will... I think that's going to be the one that's going to be the most upsetting to people, because I think it's going to be the one that is farthest from... I'm not sure if that elevator's working. I think that's going to be the one that's farthest from its original concept. Solomon, yes, I do. I definitely do. The Genesis Starliner absolutely will have to get a redesign. I think it's possible it could grow a little bit. And if it grows and they want to keep its general silhouette, I think its wings will get too long for the current hangar metrics, or too wide, sorry, that beam. And because of that, they will have to, at the very least, do folding wings. But I think the Starliner is going to get even more significant changes than that. I think, like I said, I think it's going to be pretty significant. All right, let's oops, let's summon that. I didn't mean to back out. Sorry. Caterpillar, let's bring that up. All right, we'll check out the Caterpillar's doors now. I have not actually checked them out in game. Even with the issue of elevators taking a moment to show, it's still a huge improvement over not working at all. Totally agree. Just be careful getting into them. Do you think the Genesis Star... Yep, we answered that. Solomon, I definitely think the Starliner will get a pretty massive rework. I'm starting to think more and more, though, that ship's going to be post 1.0 release. So I think that ship's pretty far out. That's actually why I melted mine. I have it in the buybacks, but I was just pretty convinced it's going to be a long while for that one comes out. Cameron says, what's the rumored Anvil Asgard? Any thoughts on what it might be? Well, I think it's a concept at this point. Possibly something large. Asgard sounds big. What is Asgard again in the lore? In the lore and the fantasy lore stuff? What are, I forget. I'm not good on that stuff. I'm sure Ender knows. If Ender's still in chat, what is Asgard, Ender? Planet of Gods. Yeah, okay. There you go. Thank you, Hefe. So, I mean, you don't name a snub ship Asgard. Well, I guess you could, but that would be really trolly. So it could be a big capital. It could be a really big capital. Again, what I would hope to get from Anvil is I would love to get a large, either a large Polaris competitor or a large Nautilus competitor. And maybe if it is a Nautilus competitor, I would want it to be bigger than the Nautilus. So probably 160 to 220 meters if I was going to call it something. So, all right, so let's try this here. Let's go ahead and open one of the doors. Here we go. You remember halfway there was the original height, and now it moves down. Bunkerfist says 3,000 meters. 3,000 meters. There we go. So these do move all the way down to the ground now. The issue is, here's the ultimate issue with this. If you have a box that you place here, let's say you place some boxes on this grid space here, and you place some boxes on this grid space. When you close this, and we'll move up. You'll notice that the boxes will then get tumbled out of the door because it's moving up on its own. We need it to stay flat at that midways section, or that midways animation phase, so that we can then move the boxes from here into here. This is a weird oversight by CIG. I get why they're doing it. It does make the ship a little bit more useful, but it's still semi-broken. I don't totally understand. I guess I don't totally understand what the thinking was here, other than just to make it a little bit useful. I think we all would have preferred a more proper long-term fix for this. So again, we need something for it to stop here. Stop at this level before going down. Okay. Stop phases, essentially. Yeah, like an elevator would. But again, being able to open up all the doors is pretty sweet, actually. And again, it does make it more useful. Absolutely makes it more useful. I'm not sure if other doors recede. Just don't stand under it. You'll get crushed. It does look cool with them all down, though, doesn't it? I really like that. Can't fit anything bigger than a mule. Yeah, just because the catwalk. Is that the same on the other side? Bold of me to think that thinking was involved. Yeah, I know. What I think was, is it just one size? I think that, again, they genuinely want to make these ships useful. Why is I don't get any... Is it just one side? Please tell me it's not one side that does this. I can see it. It's just very hard to grab the button. Okay. All buttons work for me yesterday. Okay, they're working. They're just a little hard to get to. A little hard to get to. I don't get just the F hit icon. I have to literally hold the F button, and there it is. Okay, that one worked. All right, tractor beam under here. For those who've been on a Caterpillar in a while, it does have a Caterpillar or tractor beam right there. I would love if they had to put this tractor beam on a rail that could slide, but you know, whatever. There we go, though. There is the Caterpillar all out here. All opened up. Again, it's a really cool ship. I mean, from a usability standpoint, this ship has a big future ahead of it. I just think CIG still has, you know, some work to do on it. Did they do the ramp up here? I thought this was supposed to have a ramp. Am I wrong on that? There it is. Yep, this one opens too. So there you go. Yeah, the front platform does open like that, so you can get into it now. I mean, again, just for being able to get into the ship right away, that's a pretty big deal, right? I do think a ramp would have been really cool on the front. I agree with that, Sly. I do agree with that. But it is nice to completely open it up. I actually think they could make this gangway walk here a little... maybe a little less intrusive. I don't know. I wonder if one needs it now, but... there we go, though. Pretty cool. I do dig it. Again, I have said before that I think this ship has a big future. It just needs to get worked out a bit more. For those of you wondering why it got this little bit of attention, I'm pretty certain it's because, much like the Valkyrie, they have this. They have the Caterpillar file open. Okay, and the reason they have it open, and what I mean by open, is that I think they are borrowing parts and pieces for this for the Ironclad. So when they're in these game files, it makes sense for them to like make some quality of life adjustments, right? We also know that the command module is something that is going to be detachable with the Ironclad, and is going to be detachable for the Caterpillar. If you walk to my original Drake cinematic, you'll see I have it detached. So again, John Cruz said they were going to have this detachable for the launch of the Ironclad. So I would suspect you're getting it for the launch. You know, when the Ironclad launches, we're going to get you know, that same functionality for the Caterpillar. And for those that don't know, when you detach this command module, it's actually going to be pretty cool because it's got the tractor beam on it too. So the command module can be used as a little bit of a tug ship to get cargo on board. Again, I think that's just going to be really cool. One thing that could make that really nice is if the command module had the ability to open these doors remotely, even when detached. I think that would be really cool. What do you all think about that? And sorry, everyone, I have a weird sunlight thing coming through right now. Let me see if I can adjust. Did that help? No, not really. I have sunlight blasting in the window right now. Okay, let's grab the next ship here I wanted to look at. Waffle and Sandy says the catwalk is not in the way of boxes. Good to know. Good to know. So Waffle, I think that would be cool. I haven't heard that though. I've heard that the Caterpillar is just getting a bunch of updates. So, but you might be right. I don't know. Let's send the Caterpillar down. Yes, I am going to store it before grabbing the Corsair and not do it all in one move because I've had issues with that. And let me see, is there a way for me to block that? I'm looking for a way to block. Bear with me, folks. Can I block the sunlight? Is that possible? Is this gonna work? No, I don't think it's going to. It's being a little bit of an ass. Does that work? Yeah, that... Nope, that doesn't do anything. Great. Didn't do anything. Perfect. Perfect. It's like no matter where I put it, there's like a sunbeam coming directly in on it. Let's see here. Let's grab the Corsair. I wanted to look at that one next.
Welcome to the ASOC vehicle retrieval system.
Those of you know I'm a big Corsair fan. It's one of the first big ships that I had pledged for.
Your vehicle has been delivered to the
Silence, this is the PTU. PTU. I wish I could adjust the sun execute. Unfortunately, I just don't have those skills. Don't have that. I don't have that level of skill yet. Working on it though. This is the Grim Glow. I'm getting a nice light leak kind of thing here. Oh yeah, that's good. That's what you want to see when your Corsair's coming up. You want to see it tumble like that. Okay. Zarek says, hot take, I really enjoyed the Force multi-crew in the Corsair. My friend and I have been loving it for VHRT and ERT. Said it's back to being a solo ship. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, though. It does. You can still use it in the same way you were using it, right? It just now is going to work. So you can see the size 5s on the wing. Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay. So let's go inside and check that out. Bingo bringing out the spies like us quote. That is one of my favorite quotes of all time, by the way. When they're in the forest at night and they had just parachuted in, and it's Chevy Chase says, everyone put down your weapons and I'll bring back the sun. So good. So good. I love it. Not sure why they don't have a dedicated team to fix existing problems on ships. So what I do think, Cam, is that they are starting to do that. I do think that's something they're starting to do. Their ship team has grown quite a bit too. Okay, so let's see here. Look, our guns. So we have the. Here's the 6 guns. Or no, is this? How many guns is this? This is 3, 4, 5. Is it 5 guns? 6 guns. There we go. It's our 6 guns. So 2 Badgers and 4 M6As. The Badgers are on the. Yeah, the Badgers are on the wings, and the M6As are on surrounding the cockpit. And then let's check it out. Let's go to the cockpit seat real quick. I still think this is one of the coolest animations here. Okay. I forget where the cockpit thing is at because I'm never down here. There it is. Okay. And what control do they have down here? I think it's so down here I think you would control these. You'd still control these bottom 2 chin turrets, but when you do have a co-pilot down here, the pilot loses control of them. That's what I've heard. I've heard some. This is our remote turret, by the way, on the rear of the ship. It's been a while since I've done that. I haven't sat in this cockpit seat in a long ass time. Just looking at a few things. Yeah. So, anyways, there's the changes there. I don't know if the Corsair got any other changes. Anyone know of any other changes the Corsair got besides the guns? So if you're sitting in the co-pilot seat, you take control of the bottom two nose-mounted guns. If you don't have a co-pilot and it's just you as the pilot in there, then you control the 4 nose-mounted guns, the 2 on the side and the 2 on the chin, and then you also control the that big boy right there. And isn't there another one? Is it just that one? Oh, no, there's the other one. Right there. Right there. There it is. See it? There it is. Yeah, that one. You just don't want to get your wings torn off because then you will lose a significant portion of your firepower. Why is my character acting like he can't walk in here? Again, I still think it's cool that they allowed you to walk up here. Some downward thrust going. I would be killed in real life doing that. Hey, Wolf. Hope you're well. All right, let's see here. Again, I'll need to check this more thoroughly. But Zarek is saying no changes on SP Viewer. Yeah. Ghislaine13, thank you for that follow. Salute to you. I hope you are well. Again, everyone, thanks for all those follows. Appreciate it. Switch back over to our left monitor now. Again, wanted to check that out. I hadn't actually seen those yet because I hadn't logged into the PU or the PTU in a long time. So pretty cool. I mean, what do you all think about that? What do you all think about the Caterpillar getting those changes at this stage versus them taking the time to more thoroughly get the doors working as they should? Do you think those half steps are good just to get the ship somewhat more usable? Or would you rather them hold off and do more thorough passes? I ask that because there's a number of ships that need this kind of work. I know Execute and Algora just did an episode on the Reclaimer and how it needs pretty big reworks across the board. Something I would agree with. I think the Reclaimer. Let's pull up this because a ship I own as well. The Reclaimer still needs pretty massive reworks across the board. I need to update this image too. It's got some issues. But it needs interior reworks. It needs rear cargo access rework. It needs capital docking collars. I think it's got a top-mounted airlock right here. Is that it? I think so. Top-mounted airlock that doesn't work at all. She says we recorded that in January. Well, I was hoping that they would have updated the damn ship by now, especially with the popularity of salvage, but apparently not. So, yeah, I mean, the Reclaimer needs a lot of reworks. I'm personally hoping we see those sooner rather than later. I still will stand by this. This top airlock works one way. Okay, I still think the Reclaimer multi-crewed, doing a multi-crew salvage operation in the Reclaimer, in my opinion, is the funnest time I had in Star Citizen. And I say that as being someone who, for a long time, had no interest in the Reclaimer. It was not a ship that appealed to me. I didn't have any real thoughts about it. But now I 100% think that multi-crewing a Reclaimer is one of the best times you can have in this game for like industrial gameplay. Absolutely. So I hope it gets the glow up it needs and deserves. It's a really cool ship. I think it is a little bit of a fan favorite. Lack of vision's disturbing. Hey, I'm a convert now, XQ. I do think the ship is amazing. Ruboy says Reclaimer does not need PDCs in my opinion, only large and above. military ships should have them. That's an interesting, that's an interesting discussion point. Curious what other people in chat think about that. Should industrial ships have PDCs? So, Ruboy, I actually see what you're saying, and I think that's a logical kind of assessment. I would probably go the other way, though, and say that I think it's a little weird that industrial ships sometimes have these large, complicated turrets. And it would almost make more sense for them if they were PDCs, where if industrial ships by and large relied on their PDCs to defend themselves over dedicated turrets. That's just in my opinion, though. I'm not 100% sure even. I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head, but I'm curious what everyone else thinks about that. Because we do know that non-military ships are getting them, right? The Connie Phoenix is a non-military ship. It received it. Mark G says, I like the half steps due to the iterative process. They can test ideas on a small scale, and once it's working, push out to other ships. Yep, I agree with that. I think that's a logical point. Let's see. Not too much of a Reclaimer is a military ship. It's Aegis. The Reclaimer is an Aegis ship, but I'm not sure if it's considered a military ship. It's just a civilian ship made by Aegis, sort of like Boeing. Boeing makes fighter jets, and they make passenger ships or passenger airliners. A single company can make different types of military, civilian, industrial vehicles. So it's Aegis, but it's not military. Same could be said, for example, for the well, let's look at the Aegis here. Again, most of their ships are military, so you're not wrong in that regard. But they do have, what's that other one? Oh yeah, the Vulcan. All right, so the Vulcan is another industrial ship, civilian, I guess you would say, like Execute says, civilian. In lore, the industrial ships were made to restore their name after the Mezzer, the fall of the Mezzers and stuff. Yeah. By the way, everyone, Astropub just posted it, an episode of Captain's Table. Me and Execute were both on there. Sorry I couldn't stay for the entire time, Execute. I had some family stuff I had to deal with, but it was a lot of fun talking about PvE versus PvP. So, yeah, I mean, most aerospace manufacturers make civilian and military platforms. And a lot of that is because of just diversification. You know what I mean? Maximizing return based off the technology you create, because that technology has multiple applications, right? So, for example, Sikorsky makes civilian helicopters. Sikorsky's owned by Lockheed, by the way. But Sikorsky makes civilian helicopters. They make military helicopters, a la the Black Hawk, etc. So, yeah, it can be all that and above. But you are correct in that there is not a lot of, Aegis's lineup is almost all military. All military. I encourage you all, if you have an interest in that too. The astro historian Paul Shelley, he did an episode. I forget what the name of it. I think it's Ships of the UEE Military or the UEE Navy. You can go watch that. It's really good. It does talk a lot about why Aegis is so dominant in the military ship market, or was, especially while the Mezzer regime was going on. Obviously, now that the Mezzers have fallen, Aegis is kind of on the back foot. A lot of the contracts were canceled, and new manufacturers are sort of filling that goal or filling that gap. One of the biggest ones being Anvil, and to some degree RSI. Personally, I would love if CIG did start to alter things a bit. What I would really love is if CIG did do essentially a ship competition for the UEE, where the UEE is going after 2 or 3 manufacturers in game, all in lore, and getting a proposal for maybe it's a new light fighter or a new bomber or something. And all 3 of those manufacturers come up with concept designs, and then we as the as the backers get to vote on which one becomes, which one wins the project. Because I would love to see a Drake military ship. So the Reclaimer is Aegis Dynamics' best-selling remaining military contract ship, direct from the website. That's interesting. I mean, we know it's not a military ship, right? It's a salvage ship. It's an industrial ship. I guess it could be military salvage, right? Could be military salvage. Or maybe it's just a really old write-up. and that's not how they do it now, which is very possible. Because the ship does not have military components. Last time I checked, it did not have military components. Came with stock with industrials. But again, it's a gray area too. I mean, it's not like CIG sticks hard and fast to all these rules either. They've been known to go their own way. Someone asked about this ship earlier. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. The Apollo. Let's talk about ships this year again. Again, we were talking about 4.1 changes, but I think we can also sort of project a little bit ahead and look at ships that are upcoming. We've done this before on this show. I think we've gone over these silhouettes multiple times, but that's sort of the point behind them. I know Execute and the Info Runners have done this too, but Valakor says live is up. Okay, cool, perfect. I'm not getting it on the launch rig yet, but I definitely believe you. Oops, 1 second. Yeah, cool. But the RSI Apollo, which has disappeared and now it's back. The RSI Apollo is a medium medical ship. I believe it comes in at 38 meters. Well, now I'm doubting myself. Now we need to check. Damn it. Let's see here. Where's the Apollo at on scale? Yeah, 43 meters. 43 meters. It's hard keeping all these ship sizes in my head. So 43 meters, that means it is a medium ship, but it's a pretty decent size medium ship actually on the length side of things. Cuddy's around 38 meters, so this is a little longer than that. Last we've heard, we do know the ship was in development 2 years ago. They were showing us white box development of this, especially the interior section, so it's possible it's grown. It doesn't look like it's grown based off this silhouette, but this silhouette does look like it's received some detail work, at least some. So again, I'm very curious to see where this is landing. I think the Apollo is interesting though, because the Apollo is really, it's an interesting ship because it really should have been one of the first medical ships probably to come out over things like the C8R and stuff like that, because it's the primary, that's what it primarily does. That's the only thing it does. So now there's a lot of other options for medical ships in the game already, flight ready. And I think what they're going to have to do with the Apollo, and I think what the Apollo is going to be great with, is just those medical beds, being able to do the tier 1, I think is it the medevac that's able to carry the tier 1 or the tier 3 medical bed, whichever the best one is. I forget. I always mix that up. Right, Hefe. And then the Apollo is supposed to have the drone beds. I don't think those are coming online with it, though. I think it's going to be a while before we see those. Graham, do you think they'll fix the respawn anywhere thing when the Apollo releases back to tier 1 beds? Well, I know Ender wants that. I don't know. Here's the thing. They've really kind of got themselves into a position with this now, Zarek, because if they do that, then they kind of expose themselves as being a little shitty, right? They essentially expose themselves as only making that change because they wanted to sell the NERSA, right? What they told us was that change was always intended to be that way. Well, okay. So that's great, but most people don't believe that because there's plenty of data that shows that that was not the original intent with the medical system, is that you'd be able to respond in any medical bed. Remember, they came out and said that was always the intention. I remember that being a little bit of a blow up. A lot of people angry about that. I think Starjump Ender still has a lot of anger for that, and I totally get why. So if when the Apollos come out with their tier one beds, if it, or is it tier one or tier three? It's a tier one bed, right? If they come out with those and CIG makes that change, I think that's a little dirty, a little dirty. I that's what I okay. Tier one's the best. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate you, man. I feel like now, unfortunately, they've backed themselves into a corner with this now. I mean, they could always do exactly what you're saying and make it to where you can't respawn in any bed once these tier ones come online. Um, I just I don't think it'd be a good look, honestly. I think they've got to come up with a different solution. I think that solution does take it back to the original idea and like in terms of how it would work and would probably make a lot of some people happy, but it does leave a really bad taste in the mouth. Senor says, "Hello, Graham. Hey, Senor. Hope you're well, man. This is something that really needs to go away. The respawn anywhere is going to hurt the medical gameplay." I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. I think it's detrimental to what was sold as the medical gameplay loop. Here's how I see them countering this, though. Well, before I finish that thought, Zarek says, Zarek, that is a good way out for them. I agree. So Zarek over on Twitch says CIG could just say that we needed a tier one bed in game before we could enable that. I actually think they could say that. I think they could, and that gives them a little bit of an out. Um, I don't know if they will, but ultimately I think that medical gameplay will be hurt. But here's how I say they could get around this. Let's say that they go fine. You can respawn anywhere. The different tier beds allow you to respawn at different distances from where you died, which we all know that's a part of it, the respawn distance. And then also maybe the better beds can repair you or heal you, respawn you to a better degree than the lower tier beds. But where I think it could get really interesting and make people who do have dedicated medical ships, especially ships with tier one beds, feel good again, is if they just add a bunch of additional functionality to the tier one beds. So, for example, cybernetics, surgery, enhancements. So, and that's essentially cybernetics, but cybernetics I think could literally be anything from a full cybernetic limb. Again, we know we're getting that stuff. We've seen concept imagery for it. To maybe cybernetic implants, right? So imagine if you did a cybernetic implant of um, your of some sort of visor thing that cybernetically goes over your eye, where you don't have to have a helmet on to still get a lot of your HUD information, right? I'm not saying they're going to do that. I'm speculating wildly, but I'm just saying that maybe those tier one beds add further medical gameplay that will enhance things and be sought after and make it special. That's ultimately what they need to do, is just make it feel special. Make those of you that have the ships with the tier one medical beds feel like you are getting something out of it, right? That's the primary thing here, is you want to feel like you're getting something out of it, right? Um, yeah, and I think there'll be a cost associated with it. I personally think if you have a tier one medical bed, I would love for you to be able to set. I talked about this with the Endeavor Hope um, class, the hospital ship. I would love if tier one medical beds also unlock the ability to deploy a beacon that if a player dies anywhere in that system, right, or at whatever distance they set, if a player dies, let's say you set your regen, say you die in Pyro, but you have your regen set to Orison, over at Crusader in Stanton. When you die, instead of it healing or respawning you back at Orison, you get a choice. User 0120, thank you for that follow. Appreciate it. But when you respawn, instead of just automatically respawning back at Orison, you actually get a choice. It pops up, you can respawn at Orison, or it says, hey, there is a beacon activated in your area aboard an Apollo or aboard an Endeavor. They will accept transfer of your imprint to their ship for respawn for X amount of dollars. Now, you might look at that and say, oh, well, why would I want to do that? Because I'm going to respawn, but I'm not going to have my ship or anything nearby. Well, again, maybe the Apollo then drops you off at the nearby station. You claim a ship to there, whatever. I think it would be an interesting feature to add to medical ships. Or if it's not tied to a tier bed level, then maybe it's specifically tied to medical ships. So dedicated medical ships can do it. So the Endeavor Hope, the Apollo, the Cuddy Red, the C8R, stuff like that. Ubersmith says, it'd be more likely to use a beacon if I knew there would be a response eventually. I agree, Uber. I actually think that, I'm personally, I really hope that they introduce the ability for NPCs to respond to beacons as well, personally, if there's no players in the area. Sten says, I can see many ways that would be abused. I can see abuse in literally every system that Star Citizen has. Literally every system Star Citizen has, I could probably tell you 20 ways that it can and will be abused. That's going to happen in any systemic game to some degree. People are going to abuse it. But to give people that ability would still be pretty cool. So for example, let's say you do respawn aboard the Apollo, or let's say it's aboard an Apollo. Let's say you do have a couple friends on there that are medical staff, but then you have one that's acting as security, and you drop the person off. They're just thankful to be respawned. You can always shut your beacon off if you need to stop accepting passengers. And remember, you can turn your beacon on, but maybe you could filter it, right? So only players with a certain level of personal reputation, again, something we know that's coming, players of a certain reputation get access to that respawn location. Again, it's just an option. I'm not saying that they will go that route. As a matter of fact, I would say it's probably not even likely, but it's an idea. It's an idea. Again, we're just talking about ideas to make medical ships special. Okay. Because right now, with that respawn capability taken away, I agree with Ender and what a lot of you have said here that you do lose a lot of what makes the medical ships special. Yeah, Kenzie, you would be. You'd be on a foreign ship for sure. But if you were on an Apollo or a Cuddy Red, the idea is that you respawn there and they'd fly you to the nearest station. So maybe that station is right next to where you originally died. You claim a ship from that station. You're good. You're back in the action a little faster. Or maybe they fly you to your base in that system, or whatever the case may be, or they fly you to a friendship or whatever. In the case of something like an Endeavor Hope, you'd respawn the hospital wing, but they'd probably have the hangar module on there too, and they're running taxi service. Again, gives you those options, right? Because in the future, when we have more than just two systems, it might be a much bigger deal to, like, for example, if you die in Castra and you respawn all the way in Stanton, I don't know what the jump point layout currently is, or if CIG is going to retcon that, but it could be multiple system jumps that you have to do to get back to where you were. So it could have more downtime than we currently do. Waffle says medical ships are already special. We just don't have the whole picture. If it takes 10 resources to spawn from a C8, but only 1 to spawn an Apollo, people will use it. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. That is a great point. Wolf says, well, with Death of a Spaceman, maybe the higher tier medical beds will greatly reduce the genetic loss, so you'll be better off if you have to respond. Yeah, so this goes in heavily into the whole death of a spaceman thing. We absolutely need death of a spaceman. We're missing a huge part of the puzzle when it comes to medical gameplay, and I'm just hoping and trusting that CIG has that vision for what it is supposed to be. Currently, what they've showed us, we're not getting the whole picture, and it seems wrong. Zarek says, so Castra to Pyro to Stanton. Right. So imagine if you die in Castra, but you respawn in Stanton. It takes even longer then to get back into the game because now you got to jump through 2 systems, right? And one of those systems may be a system like Pyro where PvP is open. So again, you may choose to say, hey, you know what? There's a medical ship in Castra. I'm just going to respawn on it and get them to fly me to Sherman landing zone. I'll give them a fee. And at least there, I know I got ships and other stuff in place, right? Maybe I got a few ships parked there, or maybe my friends have a base there, or whatever. I could see the reasons. I could totally see the reasons. Or a space station. Maybe your org operates a space station in Castra, but you had your respawn set to your home location, right, in Stanton. But maybe you want to just respawn in the system in Castra and be flown to that space station. Who knows? There could be a lot of situations for that. Zarek says, here's the question. If a player's ship can offer this, why can't Kelto RX offer that? Well, yeah, I mean, you're not completely wrong. I mean, technically, I guess any entity could do that. I mean, you could just say, can NPC medical ships be flying around that offer that from time to time? The short answer is yes, but obviously they're going to want players to engage on that. So we'll have to see. Again, with our silhouettes, kind of going back to that, it is a good day, Honey Springs. Hope you're doing well. Oops, sorry. With our silhouettes, obviously, we talked about the Star Lancer attack. We talked about that remote missile turret being put on the max. We're seeing that translate over. That's probably a direct correlation to development that's going on with the max. So those of you that do have the max, I would suspect the tack is coming very soon. So Zarek says that's the build, not the tack, by the way. Were you able to confirm that, Zarek? How were you able to confirm that? I'm curious because I didn't know how to confirm it. I don't doubt you, by the way. I just didn't know. So there's no bottom turrets, but the bottom turrets, they look like they were tracked in to a good degree on the tack. So they could be just pulled in a little bit, and the barrels could be sitting flush, and you wouldn't see them. But you could be right. This could be the build. I don't know. I don't even think CIG really gave a damn. Honestly, it could be just the max they threw in there for the silhouette video, because a lot of people have pointed out the max has these front headlights arrangements and the tack supposedly doesn't or something. I don't really know, but I do know that the as a matter of fact, I'll open it up real quick here. Let me open it up. It's time to go into 3D, everybody. Should we go into 3D? Let's do that. I'm not doubting you, by the way. Zarek. Not doubting you at all. Where did I put that file at? Let's see here. All right, let me open this and I'll switch us to the main screen. Okay, here we go. So, I thought this was the tack. Why is this the max? So, yeah, let me go to the tack model here. Let me get ourselves isometric. Why are we on isometric? Oh, there we go. So, let's take a look at the tack. So the tack does have the turrets kind of can pull up like this. They are going to be able to pull out, but you can see how they tuck in. Do you see when you're looking at the ship from like, let's do it more like this direction, right? You see how you got these little bulbous areas that sit down? That's what I thought was this. Again, I could be wrong. See how there's like this little bulbous area right here that sits down? I thought that was the pod on the tack, or the turret on the tack. That's what I thought it was. I wouldn't bet my house on it though. I really don't. I don't know to that degree. I do not know to that degree. I think it's hard to tell. I also can't quite tell if you can't even see that turret in the back. Of course, we're like this. You probably wouldn't see the turret. Yeah. It's hard to know. They did the silhouettes in a great way where you can't make a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's pretty low. Actually, I'll show you. I'll do something here real quick. Let's have a little fun, shall we? So, you know, when you're only looking at the silhouette, and I don't know what camera field of view they're using. I would need Tristpone, and I don't think Tristpone is in chat right now to tell me that. But you can see how this little bump right here, see that little bump, which is prevalent in the other silhouette as well. I think that's the turret because the barrels sit up pretty high. Zarek says, Starjump, can you make a canvas and match the angle? It's the issue is I don't know what field of view they use, so I wouldn't be able to match it. Some people are good at figuring that out. I know Tristpone. If any of you all watch his content, Tristpone's able to figure that out and does so pretty well. And I'm pretty sure he could give me that information if he was in chat. But without that, we won't get it to match at all. There is some stuff missing though. Like one of the things you don't see the silhouette are these canisters back here. Assuming that's how they're going to look. If I switch back to the left monitor, you don't see those back there unless they're behind some silhouette. But again, it's hard to know. It's hard to know. Here's what I'll tell you. I think the BLD and the TAC are both in development. Absolutely. I think they're both in development. Yep. So I think I think you know that's something you can keep. That's something you can be pretty confident about. That's something you can be pretty confident about. Anyways, let's start Starlancer attack. By the way, for those wondering, this is where the hangar is for the Starlancer attack. You can see the doors up here. Oops, where's that? Why am I not getting the ability to? That's weird. But yeah, in case you were wondering where the hangar doors were, that's them right here. It's not a big hangar. Yeah, it's not a big hangar. That's how big it is. It's really built for the Fury. That's pretty much built for the Fury and only the Fury. Shimpasta posts the message of the day. Says we are currently putting together a new 4.1 build for potential PTU release later today, which is great. Cool. Awesome. Alex says, when will Fleet Viewer finally get ship skin support? It's something we've messed around with in the past and looked into it a little bit. It's a little bit more complicated than just adding support for people to change the colors to whatever they want. It requires us to create essentially a color markup system for every ship, which if we were starting from scratch would be doable. However, with everything done to the level we are now, it would be very difficult to implement the custom ship livery system. It is something we still talk about from time to time. I have looked at ways to possibly do it, but it's complicated. It's pretty complicated. There's Tristpone. Hey, Tristpone. We were talking about matching the Starlancer TAC in 3D. We're trying to match it up to this, but I wasn't aware of what the camera field of view and all that was, the field of view angle and all that was for these silhouette images. I know you had did a video. If you want to Discord DM me that video, I can link it for everyone. But Trispone did a great video showing the ships in the silhouette matched up to models, and he did a damn good job on it. Damn good job, because he got the field of view and all that stuff like pretty dead on. You know that video, Trist, I'm talking about, the one with the silhouettes and you kind of show the models locked in there? DM me that video if you can. I know you did before, actually. Do I have it? Let me see. Let me see. Oh, no. No, I don't have it. And Trist, I did send that message to the person you wanted me to send to it. He will respond. Sometimes it takes a little bit, but he will respond. Mark G says, I still think they will announce test builds for base building for Q1 2026. I hope so. I hope so. I'd love that. Base building is the main thing I'm waiting for, so I really want that. Yeah, Tris, give me the video for now if you don't mind, and you can shoot me the cameras if you don't mind. But just that video, your YouTube link would be great. I'll share that because you already did a great job on it. No need for me to try to go back and do something better because I won't be able to do it better than you. You did a great job. Kerry Doc says, Starjump Grim, if you look at the front of this ship, you will see the gun on the other side poking out, gives a good angle for you. You're talking about this one here, right? This little gun. That's the side-mounted guns on this on the cheeks of the ship. Yep. Lady Space Patrol says, I have a Starlancer attack, but wanted a BLD. Well, the BLD will come at some point for sure. It's still surprising me that they did not concept sell that ship. Let's see. Stand by. Everyone too, if you stand by, I'm just bringing up some windows here. Bear with me. Bear with me. Okay, cool. By the way, on this week's weekly chat, I am going to talk about some of the new stuff that's coming in 4.1, including my opinion on the Banu, Wikilo's Emporium, all that good stuff. We may go check it out together, and just some of the other stuff. Obviously, we've got hints about that Balakar event coming up soon. Don't know exactly when, but soon. But very exciting, and hopefully 4.1, whatever that patch cycle and whatever that event is really cool. I'm expecting a lot. I mean, CIG seems like they're trying to get some interesting stuff in the game. I think the Banu thing was a big surprise to everyone. Wolf says, question: if anyone orgmate has a pioneer, would I need a build Lancer? I don't think I would. I don't think you would either. I don't think you would. I mean, it just depends. I mean, I do think there'll be a monumental cost associated with working the Pioneer. It'll be more expensive probably to operate than than the BLD. But okay, I'll show you real quick here this video. Thank you, Tristpone, for sending this to me, and everyone. I'm going to post it in chat. I want you to go watch it yourselves as well. Here we go. Boop, 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 boop. Bear with me. Here we go. Okay, here we go. So this is a video by Tristpone. You can definitely check it out on your own. I'm going to put the link in chat. Tristpone does amazing content, so make sure you give him a follow. He does really cool stuff. That is his YouTube link right there. But one of the things, for example, is he can take a silhouette and he can get the model lined up pretty close to where it's sitting in the silhouette to sort of confirm things, right? So, for example, he put the Argo CSVFM sorry, the Argo SM, CSV SM, he put overlaid with the silhouette of the other CSV that's from the video, and it allows you to see the differences in the silhouette and all that kind of good stuff. He does the same as we go down to, so for example, he does this vehicle here. Now this is not an Ursa, but he put an Ursa in there to sort of give you an idea of its scale. And you'll see that here in just a second. Coming up. There you go. So it gives you an idea of scale when laid in there. That's the important thing, is he tries to get those scales right. You can see right here where when he puts what is this, a ballista or Spartan, whatever, when he puts that in there, you can see the silhouette back here is a little different in this area, so you know that's where some major changes are going to be, right? Same thing with the medical terrapin. He was able to put a regular terrapin in there to give us a good idea of where it was different. Obviously a slight difference back here with the silhouette, and he points those out. Let's see here. Let's go ahead to oh, I didn't know you did anything like this. Looks like you did some kit bashing for this, which I thought was really cool, Trist. Just taking parts and pieces and doing a little kit bashing, which is always fun when you're into 3D. Kind of figuring out what something could possibly look like. Again, everyone, if you haven't, if you don't follow Tristbone, give his YouTube channel a follow. He does some really cool stuff. He does what I like to do. He likes to get in there, do measurements, start seeing what something could possibly be. It's a lot of fun, Apollo, one of the things he did was take the hollow model of the Apollo and put it in there. You see it pretty much almost exactly lines up to the silhouette, so it doesn't look like much has changed, other than possibly a turret change up there or something. But this could be the old hollow model in this silhouette video as well, or it could be a more updated model and they just haven't updated much. Again, you can see the Starlancer attack laid in there here, or possibly the build. I think he's showing it as the build. Again, it could be both. I think maybe it's even supposed to sort of be both, right? He also does, of course, the Perseus back here at the end. Right, Perseus laying in there. I can't wait to see the new version of the Perseus exterior, by the way. By the way, everyone, thank you for the follows, the subscriptions, all that kind of stuff. Really appreciate you. If you like my content, please give me a follow if you're on Twitch, and a subscribe if you're on YouTube with a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. It goes a long way. Goes a long way. And then obviously he does the ironclad as well. Again, fits up mostly exactly with the silhouette. The only funny thing is that the ironclad silhouette did not have the command module on it, which I thought was funny as well. Lady Space Patrol, thank you for that follow. Appreciate it. Sending the javelin overhead. Amazing. Thank you very much. But obviously ironclad. I think the ironclad, I tell you, man, I really think it's coming for Invictus. And then obviously the Pioneer. We don't have the new model of the Pioneer, but he was able to put the old one in there. And again, it mostly lines up if you scale it up. The bridge has increased in size, some stuff like that. The new Pioneer has 2 large VTOLs up here now instead of just the one, and obviously significant interior and exterior changes. But generally the Pioneer profile is mostly intact. Mostly intact. But there you go. Again, really cool video. Follow that link. It's really cool. Check it out. Lady Space Patrol says, what ships do you think in Invictus? Ironclad, Percy, Apollo? It's a good question, Lady Space Patrol. Here's what I currently think, and this is my dream scenario, would be Perseus, Ironclad, Starlancer attack. Those are the most likely, but those are all 3 big ships. I think CIG is going to spread them out. If you ask me to put money on which one I think will be flight ready, I'd probably say the Perseus. I think the Perseus is going to be the next big flight ready ship. But we still have the Paladin. There could be another Hornet variant, the Apollos, a lot of other vehicles. We saw some vehicles in that silhouette thing. Maybe one of those vehicles is coming as part of Invictus, right? I don't know about the Apollo. They just haven't shown us any updates over, except for that one update that they showed us like 2 years ago of the white box interior. That's the last we've seen of it. Tris says, my point was it's the Max and the Silhouette because it's the only one that has those headlights. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, cool. Yeah, everyone, go give Tris a follow. Absolutely. Does amazing work, actually. Really amazing work. Let's see here. So do not forget, everyone, we have St. Jude Play Live coming up in April, May. Big stuff there. We will have Starjump Station later this week where we will be doing Capital Ships Revisited. Going to probably have some guests on for that. I'm going to reach out to some people, see if they want to talk capital ships in regards to maybe how we view them now in a world where we know what 1.0 will be and where resource management has a much clearer picture. So I think that will be something that will be an interesting conversation, especially considering that one of our first talks on Starjump Station was in fact, capital ships. So going to be doing that. I'll be doing the Starjump weekly chat later this week.
It's like,
And sorry. Later this week. So stay tuned for that. All right, let's see here. Let's see here. Bear with me, everyone. I want you all to give a little Starjump love to who I'm going to send you to now. I'm going to send you to a new channel, small streamer. Don't know who it is, but I'm going to spread the love. Hopefully they are good people. We will see. They have 14 viewers right now. The Apocalypse. Going to send you over there. Give them a little bit of that Starjump love. Spread good positivity and all that kind of good stuff. Thanks for hanging out today. If you haven't followed the channel, please follow the channel. This Friday on Starjump Station, by the way, just so you all know, I will be giving away a new Starjump poster. So you want to stick around for that. Make sure you're followed to the channel. Gets you more chances to win because you can buy more tickets. Everyone, thank you for the amazing conversation. A lot of you really contributed today, and I appreciate that. I really, really do. Hagbard, thank you for that subscription. Giving you the double salute. Everyone who subscribes, you got to get the double salute icon. I'm going to pop that up right there. There you go. Probably one of the best graphic things I've ever done. So, thank you all. I really appreciate it. Give the Apocalypse a little love over there. Have a great rest of your day. Lots more stuff coming. Obviously, it looks like 4.1 is going to be live soon, or is live. I guess we'll have to check. Either way, have a good rest of your day. No worries, Honey Springs. I'll be streaming more. Don't worry. Everyone, have a great rest of your day. Salute to you all.